Hey everyone, glad to have you with us again. We're going deep on nicotine pouches today. Seems like they're everywhere now, right?
Yeah, definitely getting a lot of attention.
A lot of you have been sending in questions, articles, even a YouTube video, I think, about FDA approval. So let's get into it.
Sounds good.
I think to start, maybe we should just clarify what we're actually talking about here.
Okay.
What are nicotine pouches? Because I know some people are probably like, wait, nicotine without tobacco, is that even a thing?
Right. So think about it kind of like those nicotine gums or lozenges,
Okay.
Just a different way to get nicotine. Same idea. It's absorbed through your gums, just like with the gum.
Okay. And I see some brand names popping up a lot. Like I know we've
Yeah.
got some stuff about ZYN, there's On.
Yeah.
Are those the main players right now?
I think so. Zyn's made by Swedish Match, which is part of Philip Morris, actually,
Wow.
and On's Altria. So, big tobacco right there.
So they're really getting in on this.
Seems like it.
Which I guess leads to the next thing I was thinking about. The FDA approved these.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's a big deal, right? Especially after all this stuff with vaping and e-cigarettes.
It is. They're saying the usage rates among teens are pretty low so far, less than 2% from what we see.
Mm.
So that's a big difference from the vaping situation. They seem to be going for this harm reduction approach,
Mhm.
Trying to offer smokers a potentially safer option.
Harm reduction. Oh, okay. I think that's something we should probably unpack a little bit. What does that actually mean in this context?
Yeah, so basically it's the idea that, even if people aren't going to quit a substance completely, can you make it less risky for them?
Okay.
In this case, it's nicotine. Quitting's the ideal, obviously, but for a lot of people, it's just not that simple. So you try to minimize the harm.
That makes sense, but I've already seen some pushback on this. We've got articles here from anti-smoking groups, and they're basically saying, look, this is just going to be e-cigarettes all over again.
Mm.
It'll start with low youth usage, and then bam,
Right.
it'll explode, especially if the marketing gets a little creative. And honestly, I can see their point. I mean, this feels very Joe Camel, doesn't it? That's how these companies have gotten around regulations before.
Well, and we're actually seeing, there are videos popping up on social media of teens using these pouches already.
Mhm.
So it's not just a hypothetical worry.
So it seems like the FDA is walking a tightrope here right now, trying to balance this potential benefit for adult smokers who want to quit
Right.
with the risk that it becomes this whole youth thing.
It is a tough one.
And then you've got the tobacco companies themselves. They're pushing this as a modern, cleaner alternative to smoking.
Yeah.
But they've got this track record, right?
Right. Exactly. Makes you wonder how much they really care about harm reduction versus, just finding new customers, young ones especially.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
And I think it might be helpful if we can get a little more specific about the FDA and how this approval even happened.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through, how does something like this actually get approved? What kind of data are they looking at?
Yeah. So basically, the FDA, they evaluate these new tobacco products and they compare them to what's already out there.
Okay.
They're looking at, how much harm they might cause, how addictive they are, if they appeal to kids, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But here's the thing. A lot of the data they use actually comes from the tobacco companies themselves.
Wait, really?
Yeah. So, there's a bit of a conflict of interest there, potentially.
That is a little unsettling, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, so even if the initial data looks good, how do we know it's objective? Is anyone doing independent studies on this stuff?
That's a big concern for sure.
Oh.
Public health experts are definitely calling for more independent research, to really verify the claims these companies are making.
Yeah.
And we need long-term studies, not just, short-term data. At the end of the day, nicotine's nicotine, right?
Right.
It's addictive no matter how you get it.
It seems like there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
The science of addiction, how the FDA works, what the risks are, and the potential benefits.
It is complex. And I think it's also really helpful to understand the context,
Okay.
How did we even get to this point? From everyone smoking to now these new ways of getting nicotine.
Right. So, take us back a bit. How did we get here?
Well, smoking rates started going down.
Yeah.
And the tobacco industry, they needed new products, basically.
Right.
They tried light cigarettes, remember those?
Yeah.
Marketed as safer, but really not so much.
Right.
Then came e-cigarettes, which, seemed revolutionary at first, but then all the vaping issues came up.
Yeah.
And now here we are with nicotine pouches, kind of the latest evolution.
So are they just another chapter in that story, or are they something totally different?
That's the question, isn't it? And to really answer it, I think we need to get into, the science, the marketing, all the ethical stuff too.
Yeah, definitely. Lots to dive into.
It really is interesting, to see how like the tobacco industry keeps changing, finding new ways to get people nicotine.
It's like they're always one step ahead, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But to be fair, there are people who say, these pouches, maybe they are actually a good thing overall.
Right.
For public health, I mean.
Yeah. You hear that a lot, the harm reduction argument.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we know people are going to use nicotine anyway, so let's at least make it less harmful, right?
Right.
And there's research showing that these pouches, they're a lot less harmful than cigarettes.
Yeah.
Because there's no smoke, none of those other, chemicals you get with tobacco.
Yeah, I get that, but it still feels a little bit like, I don't know, fighting fire with fire, doesn't it? Like, are we really solving the problem, or are we just kind of shifting the addiction to a different form?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
Right. And the critics of this, they say, look, even if it's less harmful than cigarettes, it's still addictive,
Right.
especially for, teenagers, younger people.
Right.
And, the marketing, that's a whole other thing. I mean, it could easily end up like vaping did, where, they downplay the risks, make it seem cool.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking with the whole Joe Camel thing. Like, they've done this before.
Exactly.
And plus, we're still talking about nicotine here. Even if it's quote unquote cleaner.
Right.
It's not good for you.
No, definitely not. I mean, it raises your heart rate, blood pressure. There's evidence it can affect brain development, especially in adolescence.
So the science is pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't lead to, more people using nicotine overall, it just feels, I don't know, ethically kind of iffy.
It is a tough one, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, are we okay with companies profiting off something that can be harmful, even if they say it's less harmful?
It's a slippery slope, for sure. And it makes me wonder, like, can you even regulate this stuff effectively? I mean, without, driving people back to cigarettes, because that's the last thing we want.
Right. Yeah, that's the challenge for policymakers. It's all about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Protecting people, but also respecting, individual choice. And you don't want to create like a black market situation either.
It sounds almost impossible. But I mean, we have made progress on tobacco control, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Smoking rates have gone down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we learn from that?
Well, I mean, we've seen like public health campaigns have worked, taxes on cigarettes, making places smoke-free, all that has helped.
Right.
And I think some of those same ideas could apply to these pouches,
Okay.
Age restrictions, for sure. Limits on how they can market them, the advertising. And we need education programs to help people quit.
Yeah, education seems huge here. Like, people need to understand the risks, but also, the potential benefits, if there are any, so they can actually make an informed decision.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do you get that information out there in a way that, people will actually listen to?
Right. It's tough. There's so much information out there these days. It's hard to cut through the noise,
Mm-hmm.
We have to find ways to connect with people, make it feel relevant to them.
Yeah.
And be honest about the fact that, like, there's no easy answer here.
It's not about, like, telling people what to do. It's more about giving them the information they need to decide for themselves.
Right.
But, okay, let's say someone's listening to this and they're thinking about trying these pouches.
Mm-hmm.
What questions should they be asking themselves?
Well, first of all, I think you got to be really honest about why you're doing it. Like, are you actually trying to quit smoking, or are you just, curious to try something new?
Right.
Because those are very different things.
And if you are trying to quit smoking, are there, like, other options that might work better?
Yeah, definitely.
Like nicotine patches, gum, things like that.
Yeah, there's nicotine replacement therapy, prescription medications.
Right.
And, talk to a doctor, for sure.
Yeah.
Ask questions. What are the side effects? How long do I have to use this? What are the chances it'll actually work? That kind of thing.
It all comes down to, like, weighing the risks and the benefits, right?
Exactly. And remembering that it's different for everyone.
Right.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Yeah, there's no, like, one-size-fits-all solution.
Nope.
Which is why I think it's so important to, like, talk about this stuff openly.
Yeah.
Nicotine use, addiction, harm reduction.
Absolutely. We need to get rid of the stigma, so people feel comfortable getting help if they need it wherever they're at in their journey.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about, like, the individual side of things,
Mm-hmm.
but, we got to zoom out a bit too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
How do these pouches fit into, like, the whole conversation about tobacco control and public health?
Well, as we said before, there's a real concern that this could, like, set back all the progress we've made in reducing tobacco use, especially among young people.
Right. And then there's the whole like economic side of things too.
Yeah.
I mean, the tobacco industry is massive.
Huge.
They've got a lot of power, a lot of influence.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that public health is actually the priority, over profits?
That's a tough one. But I think it starts with like transparency,
Yeah.
holding the tobacco industry accountable for the harm they've caused. And we need stronger regulations, definitely, to really protect public health.
And we need more research, more education, right? So people can make informed choices.
Absolutely. The more we know, the better.
So it's a complex issue, for sure.
Very much so.
But it's an important one, and we need to keep talking about it. And it's not just, policymakers and experts, it's everyone.
Right.
The tobacco industry, the people who are, actually using these products, everybody's got to be a part of the conversation.
Totally agree. It's a shared responsibility.
Yeah. Well said. It's funny, this whole thing with nicotine pouches, it really makes you think about, like, personal freedom, right? Like, where's the line between, letting people make their own choices and protecting everyone's health?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It comes up all the time, not just with nicotine.
Right.
I mean, think about sugary drinks, fast food,
Yeah.
even like social media. We know they can be bad for us, but we also want to be able to, choose what we do.
Right, exactly. And it gets even trickier when you've got these, like, huge industries involved.
Oh, yeah.
They make a lot of money off this stuff, so they're not exactly going to emphasize the risks.
And they're really good at ticketing,
Yeah.
They know how to make things look appealing, tap into, like, our desires, insecurities.
It's like they know exactly how our brains work.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how do we become smarter about this as consumers? I mean...
I think first you just got to be aware of it,
Okay.
Be aware of the tactics they're using, like all those celebrity endorsements, the catchy slogans, the images they use. Once you see it, it's harder for it to, like, trick you.
Right. And I guess it's also about, like, not just taking things at face value, right?
Totally. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Do your own research. Don't just believe what they're telling you.
Yeah, be skeptical, but in a good way.
Exactly.
And it can't just be on individuals, right?
No way.
Like, the government has a role to play here, too.
Definitely. We need, like, strong regulations, especially when it comes to things that can be addictive, things that can, cause health problems.
Right. And holding these companies accountable, too, right?
Absolutely.
But, okay, regulations are important, but they're not everything.
Yep.
We also need, like, education, prevention program, especially for kids, teenagers, because they're the ones who are, like, most susceptible to all this marketing stuff.
Definitely. We got to give them the information and the skills to, make healthy choices, resist peer pressure, and think about the long-term consequences.
Think about, like, empowering them, right?
Exactly.
So they're not just, like, passive targets for these companies.
Yeah. We need to create a culture where health matters,
Yeah.
where it's not all about, like, instant gratification, just feeling good in the moment.
Okay, so I guess as we wrap up this deep dive on nicotine pouches, it's kind of a mixed bag, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Like, there's reason to be cautious,
definitely.
We've seen how this can go wrong before, but I also think there's hope.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're not powerless here. We know more now. We have the tools to make better choices, both individually and as a society.
We can learn from the past, and do things differently going forward.
Yeah, make sure health is the priority, not profits. Well, thanks for breaking all this down for us.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Really appreciate it. And for everyone listening, we hope this has given you some things to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Keep learning.
Stay curious.
And until next time, we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Take care.